It's time to break down the Buffalo Bills' Week 10 opponent, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Wednesday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. It's BetOnline, and it's where the game starts. Well, folks, I know that everybody is in anticipation of the news surrounding Josh Allen and the severity of his injury. And unfortunately, we don't have that information as of the recording of this podcast. We're expecting that update to come from Coach McDermott on Wednesday, and I'm recording this on Tuesday afternoon. And so we will talk about the Josh Allen injury when we have the information necessary to talk about the Josh Allen injury. But regardless of the availability of Josh Allen, the Bills are going to play a game on Sunday, and let's talk about it. So the Bills are back home in Week 10 for a date with the Minnesota Vikings. The game will be played on Sunday, November 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. The game will be broadcasted on Fox. Joe Davis is on the play-by-play. Daryl Johnston is the game analyst. Pam Oliver is the sideline reporter. This will be the 15th all-time meeting between the Bills and Vikings. The Bills have a 6-8 all-time record against Minnesota, and the Bills have won the last two, actually, against Minnesota, and 4 of the last 5. And, of course, the last time the Bills played the Vikings was back in 2018. Josh Allen's first ever win as a starting quarterback, 27-6 road win against Minnesota. That was the game where he famously hurdled over Anthony Barr. The Bills were big-time underdogs, and they won the ball game. And I think it was a big moment for Josh Allen. Had some really, really clutch moments, really kind of showed the physical ability that made him the number 7 pick in the draft. The Bills, as you know, enter this game 6-2. The Vikings are 7-1. They're winning a lot of games this year. Their 7 wins have come against the Packers, Lions, Saints, Bears, Dolphins, Cardinals, and Commanders. Their one loss came in Week 2 to the Philadelphia Eagles, 24-7. They're winning a lot of close games. That's one thing that's been the theme for Minnesota is it feels like every week it's really, really tight, and every week they wind up having more points than their opposition. Their head coach is Kevin O'Connell, 37 years old. It's his first season as an NFL head coach, a former NFL quarterback. He played his college ball at San Diego State, was a third-round pick by the Patriots in 2008, and he never really stuck around as a quarterback in the league. He bounced around as a backup from 2008 to 2012. He spent time with the Patriots, Lions, Jets, Dolphins, and Chargers, and then he kind of came up as part of the Sean McVay coaching tree. And if you kind of go back through his history, 2015, he was the Browns quarterbacks coach. 2016, an offensive assistant for the 49ers, and then 2017 and 2018, the quarterbacks coach in Washington. 2019, he was the offensive coordinator in Washington. 2020 and 2021, the Rams offensive coordinator, and now he's the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. He's challenged one play so far, and it was overturned, so he got it right. The quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings is Kirk Cousins, 6'3", 205 pounds, 34 years old, was a 4th-round pick in 2012 by Washington, and then he was with Washington from 2012 through 2017, and then he was a free agent and signed with Minnesota, and he's been their starter since 2018. So basically, if you look at his career, he has 8 seasons as an NFL starting quarterback. He was kind of a backup early on, and then he became Washington starter and so on and so forth. He's started 128 games so far in the NFL. He has a record of 66, 60, and 2 as a starting quarterback. So far in 2022, he's completing 64.8% of his passes, 250 passing yards per game, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a passer rating of 89.5. Let's take a little bit deeper dive into those metrics that build into those numbers. His average time to throw is 2.65 seconds. That is 19th in the NFL. 42% of the time he gets it out in under 2.5 seconds. 58% of the time he holds on to it for over 2.5 seconds. His splits are very similar when he holds it versus when he gets it out quick. And you'll kind of, as we get through this, you'll realize that this is a team that relies a lot on play action. And so that's going to be a big contributing factor to the times where he does hold on to the football. His average depth of target is 7.6 yards from the line of scrimmage. That is 27th in the NFL. That's very low. And so is this number. 7.6% of his attempts are 20-plus yards down the field. That is 32nd. That is dead last in the NFL. So he is not dialing up the deep ball very often. When he does, when he targets a receiver 20 yards or more down the field, he's 10 of 23 for 364 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and a passer rating of 65.3, which is the 21st passer rating in the NFL on deep throws. And so they're not having a ton of success pushing the ball down the field, and it's not a big part of what they've done to this point. Play action is a big part of what they've done. 32% of Kirk Cousins' drop-back passes are play action. That's 8th highest in the NFL, and it's an important part of their success in the passing game. With play action, Kirk Cousins has the 10th highest passer rating in the NFL. Without play action, 22nd. And so it's a big staple of this football team. 9.8% of Kirk Cousins' passes are screens. That's middle of the pack, 15th in the NFL. Now let's talk about the pressure splits. When Kirk Cousins is kept clean, he completes 77% of his passes, 6.7 yards per attempt, passer rating of 101.9. When he's under pressure, he completes 39% of his passes, 6.2 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 62.2. So the completion percentage comes down 38%, and the passer rating comes down 39.7 points. You want to make Kirk Cousins worse? Get pressure on him. As far as the blitz goes, this is very interesting because if you look at Kirk Cousins' career, he's handled the blitz extremely well, but not so much this year. That could have something to do with him being in a new offense, but blitzing has been effective this year against Kirk Cousins. When he's not blitzed, he's completing 69.4% of his passes, 7.3 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 94.8. When he is blitzed, those numbers come way down. 52.9% completion percentage, 4.8 yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 76. And so that's something to keep in mind for a team in Buffalo that hasn't blitzed a ton. Might not be a bad idea to try some of that this week, especially because the Bills have actually struggled to get pressure on the quarterback, which we will talk about here in just a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by SimpliSafe. If you thought about securing your home with home security, but am putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Bills listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why I love SimpliSafe. It's cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know that your home is safe. SimpliSafe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I will recommend. You can get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedon. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonnfl. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. The offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings is Wes Phillips. Who is Wes Phillips? Well, he's the son of former Bills head coach and defensive coordinator Wade Phillips, 43 years old. This is his first season as an NFL offensive coordinator. He came up 2007 through 2013, so a big old chunk of time as an offensive assistant in Dallas. 2014 to 2018 as the tight ends coach in Washington, and then 2019 through 2021, the tight ends coach for the Rams. Now he's the Vikings offensive coordinator. So far in 2021, the Vikings are averaging 24 points per game. That's 8th in the NFL. They're converting 40% of their third downs. That's 16th in the NFL. They score a touchdown 65% of the time they get to the red zone. That is 7th. They average 340 yards per game. That's 15th. 102 rushing yards per game. That's 24th. And 238 passing yards per game. That is 10th. Let's talk about their personnel a little bit. And they got a couple of superstars here in terms of their weapons. Their wide receivers, Justin Jefferson. This is one of the best players in the NFL and one of the best wide receivers. He is a do-everything guy. He runs great routes. He can win inside and outside. He's phenomenal after the catch. He can win deep. He's got ball skills. He's dominant in contested situations. He's got great size. I mean, there is nothing lacking when it comes to Justin Jefferson, and he's in a very creative offensive scheme that knows how to get him the football. He's a big, big challenge for the Buffalo Bills this week. Adam Thielen is their number 2. He's kind of getting a little bit older, but he's still productive. Good route runner, has good size, physical, ball skills. He's a nice player, but he's not the same guy that, was productive along with Steph Diggs when he was there several years ago. And then their third guy is KJ Osborne. Actually played his college ball at the University of Buffalo before he transferred to Miami. He's a good player. I don't think he's a overly dynamic football player that you lose sleep over, but he's a solid player that I think would bring value to most teams. Cerebral route runner, competitive, not physically dominant or anything like that, but a reasonable depth wide receiver. At running back, another superstar, Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the entire NFL. He's having a great season. He's winning after contact. He's got a great feel for this zone rushing offense. He catches the football. He's outstanding. Like I said, one of the best running backs in the NFL, and he's absolutely in his prime. Their backup is Alexander Mattison, who has a lot of fans out there. He seems to be productive every time he gets a chance to play, but that really only happens when Dalvin Cook is not available. When Dalvin Cook is healthy, it's the Dalvin Cook show, and they don't really think about Alexander Mattison. And right now, Dalvin Cook is healthy. So you got a tier 1 running back in Dalvin Cook. You got a tier 1 wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. At tight end, they recently traded for TJ Hawkinson from the Detroit Lions. Top 10 pick a few years back. Has been a good player for Detroit, and I think he's going to be a good player for Minnesota. In his first game last week for the Vikings, 9 catches for 70 yards. And so they're going to get this guy going, and they should. And obviously there's a lot of pedigree, right, with Wade Phillips and his background coaching tight ends for so long in the NFL. I think they're obviously going to want to get him going, and I think this is an important player for the style of offense that Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips wants to run. And so he's new to them, but I think he'll be productive. Let's look at this offensive line. This is an entire offensive line that they drafted. Their left tackle was Christian Darrisaw, who is in his second season, was a first-round pick last year out of Virginia Tech, and he's developing into a top-tier left tackle in the NFL. He's been as good as anybody this year at left tackle. He's phenomenal. And, I loved watching him at Virginia Tech. I had a high grade on him, and he's been awesome for them, and it looks like they have a real stud there for a long time to come at left tackle. At left guard is Ezra Cleveland. He's highly athletic. I think he's an average starter. Their center is Garrett Bradbury, former first-round pick, has a ton of range and athleticism. He just doesn't have the most stout anchor, and he's not a guy that creates a ton of movement, but his range and mobility is really outstanding. Their right guard is the weak link here. A rookie out of LSU, Ed Ingram, second-round pick of theirs. He's had some challenges this year for sure. There's no doubt about it. I think he'll be a good starter for them, but the light bulb has not come on. And then the right tackle is a quality player in Brian O'Neill, who's recently signed an extension. He's a long-term fixture there. He's a good player. But I think where you have opportunities against this offensive line is in the middle, this trio of Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, and Ed Ingram, and I think their tackles are phenomenal. So that's something to keep in mind here when you think about the composition of this offensive line. But I will say this, I feel like every week I've got on this podcast and I've talked about weak links on the opposing team's offensive line and opportunities that the Bills will have to win some matchups, and they don't do it enough. They just don't, right? They don't take advantage of offensive linemen that I think they should be able to take advantage of. And it's time for this defensive line to step up. And, you know, the Rams game was phenomenal, but that was week 1. That feels like 100 years ago already. This defensive line, the Bills need more from this defensive line. And so for number 1, my keys for the Bills defense against this Minnesota offense, number 1 is get pressure. It's been a problem for the Bills this year. They're only getting pressure 21.2% of the time. That's 20th in the NFL. Bottom tier team in terms of creating pressure on the quarterback. That has to change. That has to change. They've been getting some sacks, but they're not getting enough pressure. And Kirk Cousins gets pressured. He's faced pressure 26.1% of the time this year. That is 5th highest in the NFL. Bills might not have Gregory Rousseau. They won't have him, right? He's got a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss a few weeks. Hello, Boogie Basham. Hello, AJ Epinesa. Hello, Von Miller. Tim Settle, where you at? Jordan Phillips, where you at? Ed Oliver, let's go. D-line needs to step up. Number 2 is be ready for a heavy dose of Dalvin Cook. You think the Vikings hadn't watched the Packers and the Jets run through this Bills defense? They're going to do it. The Bills are going to get all the Dalvin Cook they can handle. And so I suggest you handle him, or else he's going to rack up a ton of yards. Figure out how to stop the run. And Leslie Frazier talked about it this week. He says there's nothing secret. It's about being physical and being in your run fit. All right, go do it. Now, this is a wide zone rushing offense that doesn't necessarily have people movers, but they know how to take advantage of angles, and they got a good running back. You got to be able to fight pressure with pressure, get in your gap, and make a play. Number 3, Justin Jefferson. I mean, I've talked about him. He's one of the best players in the league, one of the best receivers in the league. What's your plan going to be? Trey White, you ready to go? Kyer Elam, you ready for this one? I mean, you got to have a plan here. You can't just run the scheme. That's what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, one of the best receivers in the NFL. What are you going to do about that? He's a type of player that dictates things, right? You have to be willing to adapt and have a plan for not allowing Justin Jefferson to go off against your defense. And then number 4, I think there's been a lot of success here over the last 6 quarters against the Bills defense with quick passes and running the ball. And we have a team here in Minnesota that doesn't like to throw the ball down the field and hasn't been successful throwing the ball down the field. But they throw the ball quick and have success, and they run the ball well. And so in a lot of ways, this offense is perfectly designed to have success against the Bills. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to adjust and meet this moment and overcome deficiencies that you've had in recent weeks against an offense that excels in areas where you're weak? Big test here for this defensive line that's not going to have Gregory Rousseau, and for a back 7 that could have some different pieces back in the mix this week. But this defensive line, more than anything, needs to show up this week, because I think they've really let the team down over the last several weeks. This episode is brought to you by BlueNile. Whether you're looking to pop the question, have a milestone to celebrate, or want to let your love sparkle, BlueNile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. As the original online jeweler, BlueNile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. BlueNile has helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring. Their easy online tools let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. If you're looking for a piece of fine jewelry to commemorate a special milestone, but you're still having trouble choosing, don't worry. BlueNile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. You can shop stress-free with BlueNile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All BlueNile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging, and they also offer overnight shipping if you're in a rush. So make your moment sparkle with BlueNile. Go to BlueNile.com and use code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BlueNile.com, code Locked On to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code Locked On. Let's talk about this Vikings defense that is coordinated by Ed Donatel, 65 years old. It's his first season in Minnesota, has 11 years of experience as an NFL defensive coordinator. And when I think of Ed Donatel, I think of Vic Fangio because they've spent the last 11 seasons together prior to this year. So wherever Vic Fangio has been, Ed Donatel has been there. So Denver, Chicago, San Francisco, they've been joined at the hip. So far, this Vikings defense in 2021, they're allowing 20 points per game. That's 12th. 368 yards per game. That's 25th. 111 rushing yards per game. That's 10th. 256 passing yards per game. That's 27th. 34% on third down. That's 8th. And this one is a big number here. 79% in the red zone. They allow a touchdown. That's dead last, 32nd in the NFL. Let's talk about their defensive personnel. On the interior, and they're going to give you a lot of odd fronts, so 3-4 looks will be a notable part of how they align. On the interior, Harrison Phillips, you know him, right? They paid him a decent amount of money to come over and be a starting defensive tackle for them. He's been solid. Dalvin Tomlinson is his running mate, but I don't know if he's going to be available this week, and that'd be a big loss for their defense. And so you'll see John Bullard, who's an athletic guy, kind of playing as a 5-tech, I loved him coming out. He's been injured a lot in the NFL, but I think he's a potent player. And then Ross Blacklock and James Lynch are a couple other rotational type players that will be sprinkled in as well. But their main guys are Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson. And again, Dalvin Tomlinson, if he's not available, that's a big loss for this defense. On the edge, they've got a couple of really good edge rushers, led by Zadarius Smith. And we did at the Draft Network, we did our midseason award ballots. And so we had to submit our top 5 for every award. And, Zadarius Smith was one of the 5 guys that I voted for. He's having a phenomenal year. If I'm not mistaken, he leads the NFL in pressures, gets lots of sacks. He's a really good player. The Bills have to account for him. And then Danielle Hunter is opposite of him. And we know what he can do in the NFL. He's been one of the best pass rushers over the last several years, and he's having another good season. Then their depth players are a couple recent draft picks in Patrick Jones and DJ Wanham. I don't think they're dominant players, but they're nice rotational guys that can make an impact from time to time. So I like what they have going at edge, especially in this hybrid front, defense. At linebacker, a couple of veterans with a lot of range and athleticism, Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks on the second level there. And, they're not big players, but they're fast, and they've played a lot of football in the NFL. I think they're a quality pair of linebackers on the second level. At corner, this is going to be interesting. Patrick Peterson's, I guess, their top corner. He's an older player at this point. He's having a good season. He looks a lot better this year than in some of the more recent years. So you got to be mindful of him. Then their number 2 corner is Cam Dantzler. Coach O'Connell already said it's a long shot for him to play this week. And so I'm not anticipating him playing, which means they'll turn to a rookie 4th-round pick, a Caleb Evans. And so he hasn't played much this year, but if Cam Dantzler can't go, it's expected that he'll get the start. And then they have a pretty good slot corner in Chandon Sullivan. So I think there's some opportunities here. This defense has given up quite a bit of passing yards this year, and they're going to be without their number 2 corner. And I think you can, I don't know if Josh Allen's going to play, but if he does, there should be a lot of passing yards to be had. At safety, it's Cam Bynum and Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith, a longtime veteran, for the last 10, 15 years, I think you would say that he's been among the best safeties in the NFL. I don't think he's that right now, but he's still a quality starter. And then a player they drafted last year in Cam Bynum, mid-round pick, who has come in and played really good football. And kind of a hybrid slot player at Cal. And you're seeing him play traditional safety for them, and he's been really good. So what are my keys for the Bills' offense against the Vikings' defense? Folks, I have no idea if Josh Allen's going to play. But regardless of who plays quarterback for the Bills, number one is take care of the football. The Bills are turning over the football 17.1% of their offensive drives. Congratulations, Buffalo. You turn the ball over the highest percentage of any team in the NFL. You think you would say that about the Bills coming out of their 8th game of the year? Well, that's the world we live in. The Bills have not taken care of the football. That has to change, and has to start this week, especially if Josh Allen can't go. And folks, the Vikes, they take it away. They take it away 13.5% of the time. That's 8th best in the NFL. So they're in the top 25% of the NFL in taking away the football, and the Bills are dead last in protecting it. Number 2 is go after these corners. You should be able to have some wins here. Diggs against Peterson. That should be a matchup that at this point Diggs should be able to handle. A 4th-round rookie and a Caleb Evans. I mean, you should be able to get some wins. And so we're talking about the rest of the receivers stepping up. It's a good week to do it. Number 3 is finish drives. Minnesota's giving up a touchdown 80% of the time that the opponent gets to the red zone. The Bills haven't been a great red zone offense, 54%, 19th in the NFL. But if you can stack up some touchdowns here, that's going to be a good recipe to win this ball game, because I don't know how the explosive plays are going to happen without Josh Allen. And so if you are able to get down there, you better score some touchdowns, because this Minnesota defense is allowing a lot of touchdowns. Real quick on special teams, their kicker is Greg Joseph. He's not had a great year, 68.8% so far making field goals, 82.7% for his career. Now, I will say that he hasn't missed within 50 yards yet this year, so he's 1 of 6 beyond 50, and he's made all of them inside of 50. But the fact that he's 85.7% on extra points tells me he's not been very consistent this year, and he is not automatic. He's capable of missing a field goal. Their punter is Ryan Wright, a rookie out of Tulane who's having a phenomenal start to his season and his career. And then their kick returner, this is a guy I don't want to deal with. He's awesome. He's got a difficult name to pronounce. I'm sure I'm about to make a mistake here, but Kene Nwengu. This guy is an unreal talent as a kick returner. And I know that I preach about forcing returns and tackling them inside the 25. I ain't messing around this week. This guy's phenomenal. And then their punt returner is Jalen Reagor, was a former first-round pick of the Eagles. They traded for him before the season. And I think he's potent, although I don't know that he's necessarily had the explosive returns yet in the NFL. But certainly a guy that I think is capable of being dangerous with the ball in his hands. So a nice test here for the Bills coverage units if they have to make tackles. So there you have it. I know that this game is challenging to really preview without knowing if Josh Allen's going to play. I don't think he's going to. We'll find out on Wednesday. And, of course, we'll adjust our conversations the rest of the week accordingly. And, that starts tomorrow with our crossover preview with Locked On Vikings, and that should be a good conversation. I'm anxious to learn a little bit more about Minnesota and see what their biggest storylines are and how Luke Braun, their outstanding host, kind of views the matchups and sees this game going. So come on back for that tomorrow. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again on Thursday.